Today, we're diving deep into our recent stay at the Kimpton Grand Roatan Hotel and Resort in Honduras. This isn't your typical all-inclusive Caribbean resort, and that's both a good but also potentially expensive thing to consider. So we actually stayed here using a combination of points and cash, stacking some serious credit card benefits, which I will explain later in this video, and I'm going to tell you exactly what worked, what didn't, and whether this luxury property is worth your hard-earned dollars or points if you travel exactly like we do. And if you're new to this channel, my name is DeAndre. I'm a Forbes-ranked financial advisor by trade, and along with my fiance Taryn, we love traveling the world and sharing luxury hotel reviews, destination tips, and travel experiences designed to help you elevate your travels. If that sounds like your vibe, hit the subscribe button and stick around. I also host a weekly podcast that's consistently ranked in the top 100 of travel podcasts, where we dive into how we use points and miles to unlock luxury travel. From $10,000 business class flights we got for less than the price of economy, to 5-star hotel stays like this one for basically pennies on the dollar. And I bring incredible guests on to help you learn how to travel smarter. You can scan the QR code on the screen or just click the link in the description below to check it out. By the end of this video, you'll know if the Kimpton Grand Roatan should be on your bucket list or if you should look elsewhere for your next Caribbean getaway. And just so you know, this video is not sponsored at all, so these are all our own opinions. So let's get into it. So let's talk about our arrival experience because it really sets a tone for the entire trip. So we ended up opting to pay for a cab right from the hotel, or right from the airport, I mean. It was actually only about $35 for the one-way. I believe when I called ahead and asked the resort what their pricing would be for pickup, it was something like maybe $55 for a shared van and like $120 for a private ride, and the taxi was completely the way to go. Very, very easy. Many cab drivers as soon as you walk out of the luggage area of the airport. So we pulled up to this lush tropical entrance at the hotel that immediately screams kind of luxury without being over the top. And now here's where things could have easily gone wrong from the get-go. We actually had 3 separate bookings to coordinate because of our point strategy and how we booked it, and I'll get to that later. But we had different strategies, different bookings, different confirmation numbers, and the works. But the front desk team, they were incredible. We didn't get any attitude, any eye rolls. They graciously consolidated everything so we didn't have to juggle a bunch of paperwork and kind of figure things out or have to move rooms around. So we stayed in one place the entire time, which was great. And then they handed us these perfectly balanced welcome cocktails. And it wasn't just some like sugary resort punch. This was a nicely crafted drink that honestly kind of started the vacation off right and set the bar pretty high for everything else that followed. And just something to note, the alcohol was optional. So for those who don't drink, you can still enjoy the welcome cocktail as well. The staff drove us to our bungalow and gave us genuine tips about the best time to catch the sunset and details about the hotel. And overall, every interaction really felt unhurried, like they actually wanted us to have an amazing time rather than just check us in. And one thing to know about getting around, Kimpton actually doesn't call for outside taxis. Instead, they do have their own fleet of really nice vehicles that you can book and simply charge to your room, which makes it super easy. And it's also very convenient, but it can get a little bit pricey if you're using it often. On the flip side, they do also run a free shuttle to and from the West End several times a day, which is a nice perk if you want to explore beyond the West Bay, which is where the hotel is located, without the additional cost. Alright, so let's talk about the rooms. So we actually chose one of the larger bungalows that's actually set away from the main building. And this decision made all the difference and was very important for us. This wasn't your typical cramped hotel room. We're talking a split level layout that feels more like an apartment. Blackout shades, plenty of storage. There was even a full 5-gallon water cooler in the room for you to just have fresh cold water all the time. Including, it also had a private deck that was great for evening and relaxing. And also the main reason why we chose it was because it had an outdoor shower. This was actually originally meant to be a trip focused on scuba diving, so we wanted the outdoor shower so we had a nice spacious place to rinse off all of our gear that we brought with us after our dives. The bed was perfectly comfortable, and honestly, I've got no complaints about the room. One thing to note though, the path to the bungalows, while only really less than a 5-minute walk to the lobby, has a section that has a very steep incline. So those with mobility concerns may want to avoid these type of rooms, and it never really rained our entire stay, but I can imagine if it does rain that could be a little bit difficult. There was a railing, but just something that you might want to keep in mind. Now let's talk about what I feel like really matters, right? The pool and the beach situation. So the Kimpton actually sits at the quieter end of West Bay, which means you get all of the beauty of Roatan's most famous beach without the cruise ship crowds, which comes in by the droves to the West Bay. It gets pretty busy on the other ends farther away from the resort. The infinity pool is perfectly positioned for sunset views and became one of our daily gathering spots pretty much every evening after our dives. The swim-up bar service was on point, staff circulated with round punches. There's a lot of entertainment that happened, especially on Friday and Saturday nights right there in the same area. So it was a fantastic place to kind of hang out and gather and park for the majority of the day. And here's what I thought kind of impressed me most was that despite being a very family-friendly resort, the vibe consistently stayed pretty calm. In our experience, there were no screamy kids, there were no rowdy pool games, just that perfect vacation relaxation that we would like to have after each day of diving. Now the beach, you can literally walk from your lounger into crystal clear water and be immediately surrounded by tropical fish. We're talking like ankle deep water with schools of fish darting around. The resort actually provides snorkel gear as part of the resort fee and floaties. And yes, unlike some other brands of hotels, there is still a resort fee when you book with points. But when Taryn and I were there in the water, we were actually commenting that outside of our trips to the Maldives, that was probably the most vibrant, like few steps from the beach, coral and sea life that we've really experienced anywhere else, which I felt made it super unique. Also, because the resort sits in like this protected bay area, that means a very calm, very gentle surf that's perfect for floating on inflatables or just soaking in the shallows. And you don't have to worry about packing your own inflatables unless you really want to. There was a kiosk that had an assortment of inflatables, sunscreen, and other items to make the stay more enjoyable for you. And also, security kept the beach vendor interruptions to a minimum so you can actually relax without the constant sales pitches. Now, just know, you walk down the beach from the resort, you're going to get asked to buy things, massages, a lot of things that you're going to typically find in most Caribbean resorts. Now, let's talk about food, because I think this is where the Kimpton really surprised us. This isn't all-inclusive, so every meal is an additional cost, but I feel like the quality really justifies the price. So while we tried to venture out and have a lot of different foods off the resort, our first night we had room service, which was top notch. It was fantastic. It was hugely portioned, and honestly, probably one of the better room service experiences or meals that I've had. In fact, one chicken sandwich alone that we got was enough to feed both Taryn and I. So our second night we ate at Alaire, which is on the property as well, and they serve Mediterranean-inspired dishes that transition during lunch from being more casual to a much more sophisticated dinner. We did make reservations, but at least for when we stayed there, it didn't really seem super crowded. We did have an incredible crispy pork belly porchetta that was honestly top notch and served to people by itself. They have locally caught fish prepared to perfection, and this is restaurant quality food, not the resort or cruise cafeteria style you might find in some other places. They do also have many vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options as well, and a staff who will ask you about your dietary concerns, which I do know is important to a lot of travelers nowadays. Now, the cocktails across the property were legitimately pretty impressive. We're talking fresh, squeezed juices, top shelf spirits, creative garnishes. The cocktail menu alone at Alera specifically was actually something reminiscent of many of the bars that we visited around the world that have made the world's top 50 best bar list, and they didn't disappoint. They had a nice story behind each cocktail, a very specific booklet that they gave you for the cocktail menu, so I thought it was absolutely fantastic. But another highlight, I think, was the complimentary sunset happy hour, because every evening they served an assortment of wines as well as rum punch and some gourmet snacks from 5 to 6 in the main lobby area with no upcharge to it. And we're talking lobster rolls, some fresh ceviche, some small bites, which were really nice to hold you until dinner time, especially if you were going off the resort to go eat. And if you book through American Express's Fine Hotel and Resorts program like we did for part of our booking, then breakfast is included. And their breakfast buffet was massive. It wasn't your typical continental breakfast. There were barbecue chicken, buffalo eggs, tropical fruits, many local Honduran dishes as well. It was a great value, and seeing as otherwise it probably would have been around $30 to $40 per person otherwise, I think the fact that it came free if you book through American Express Fine Hotel and Resorts could actually make a difference and could save you a lot of money if you're a couple that are booking this for your honeymoon, as an example. Now we got to talk about the spa, because the spa itself consistently ranks among the world's best, which was honestly something that neither of us knew until we got there, but they have signs everywhere letting you know that it's ranked in the top 15. And after our couples massage and our spa experience, I can honestly say I understand why. There were personal attendants in each of the private locker rooms, jacuzzis, and steam rooms that were also in each of the individual rooms. And this wasn't like your typical spa. It's actually nestled in the jungle with floor-to-ceiling windows completely separate from the main lobby, and it's overlooking tropical greenery. There's multiple indoor plunge pools of various temperatures, an outdoor pool, and a giant hammock-type net that you can relax in and take in the incredible views from the cliffside while listening to the birds calling and feeling the ocean breeze. The whole experience feels more of like a private retreat in Bali than your typical Caribbean hotel spa. And honestly, we could have spent the entire day here just moving between the different relaxation areas, but the only reason why we couldn't stay longer is because we actually had another dive planned later that day. But I also understand it's a bit of a splurge, but the personalized service and the jungle tranquility setting made it worth every penny. But speaking of diving, that was the main purpose of our trip, and we got out on the water with West Bay divers. The Kimpton actually has a small satellite desk on the property where you can coordinate your dives, and I thought and kind of assumed that we could literally just walk down to the beach, pick up a boat, and go from there. That was my expectation, and apparently that used to be the case. You could walk maybe 2 minutes from the resort and get picked up at a pier, but that's since changed. So now you have to go to their main office, which is about a 15 to 20 minute walk down the beach from the resort. Or if you'd rather save your energy for the dive, the hotel will shuttle you there for about $5 each way. And that's total, not per person. And once you're on the site, the crew there made everything effortless. West Bay Divers was fantastic. They set up our gear, gave really clear briefings, and they knew some of the best spots around Roatan's world-class reef. Now, one of the parts that was probably slightly disappointing is we didn't actually have to venture far from the shore at all. We pretty much stayed in the West Bay area. We could almost see the hotel and the resort every single dive. We were probably only 100 or 200 yards off the coast, but the coral reef was absolutely fantastic. Crystal clear water. Honestly, some of the clearest water I've experienced outside of the Maldives and some other fantastic places. And it's like you drop in and someone turned up the saturation on your screen. Vivid corals, school of tropical fish. It was absolutely fantastic, and the visibility honestly seemed endless. For certified divers, it's certainly a dream setup, and if you're not into scuba, no worries, their team is fantastic. They offer snorkeling trips and other things as well, so you can do a lot of exploring even without the tank. But honestly, you can do some fantastic snorkeling literally just walking off the beach of the resort without paying any additional money. All right, so as promised, let's briefly get into the point strategy, because this is really where we're able to maximize value, and that could be helpful for someone who wants to play the points game, or for someone that has never heard of the point strategy before but may be interested after watching this video. So we actually use the American Express Platinum to book through the fine hotels and resorts for our first and last night. And so that gave us $200 statement credit towards our stay for each of those nights, because we actually used one card from Taryn, one card from myself, but also the fine hotel and resorts benefit that I mentioned, which gave us free breakfast for those nights and $100 property credit for those night stays as well. So we got that for multiple days, and early check-in and late checkout, which was nice. But the main thing was the 4 middle nights, where we were able to take advantage of a 170,000 point IHG sign-up bonus using the IHG One Rewards Premier Credit Card that Taryn got last year for this specific goal of staying in this specific property in this trip. And it actually gives you platinum status with IHG properties, and the Kimpton is one of them, which means that you can get the 4th night free when you book 3 nights with points. So we were able to get a 4-night stay with just one card that has a $99 annual fee. And these are the type of strategies that we talk about in our weekly podcast. So check that out if you want to learn how to do that the right way and responsibly without going into debt. That's a big thing that we always talk about. So let's talk value. Is the Kimpton Grand Roatan worth it? Well, cash rates frequently can easily top $400 per night, so our points redemption really delivered a lot of real savings for us. But even if you're just paying cash, the experience, I feel, justifies the price, especially when you compare it with other luxury Caribbean resorts. You're getting spacious accommodations with thoughtful touches, genuinely tranquil pool and beach access, restaurant quality dining, world-class spa facilities, and service that consistently impresses. Cocktails ran about $9 to $14, which is pretty reasonable, especially for this level of quality. The dinner entrees were fairly priced, and especially when you factor in the generous portions and the preparation qualities, really have got no complaints at all. I think the daily breakfast inclusion with the Fine Hotels and Resorts program, or those bookings, was very valuable, which not everyone's going to book with that program. But I do think no matter what, the fact that the evening happy hour for all guests can add significant value that's often overlooked. And I know I just mentioned some of the wine and alcoholic drinks, but they had juices and other things as well for those that don't drink, or for kids also. And it's perfectly framed for a beautiful sunset shot when you see it. So when we compare this to other Caribbean luxury properties that we've stayed at, the Kimpton Grand Roatan, I feel, really delivers authentic luxury with a great value to it as well. So who should book this property? Well, the property is perfect, I think, for couples that are seeking genuine luxury without the crowds, honeymooners who want privacy and romance, but it's also family friendly, but maintains a nice sophisticated atmosphere. I'd say if you're traveling with kids, which we don't have kids, but if you're traveling with kids, they'll be welcome, but at least for our stay, this didn't seem like a kids club heavy resort. For the points enthusiasts like us, this represents one of the better IHG redemptions available, especially when you can stack some of the credit card benefits with it. And if you value peace over the party atmosphere, which there are plenty places in Roatan that you can find a party as well, there's the thoughtful touches over flashy amenities and a nice authentic hospitality over scripted service. This resort absolutely delivers. So bottom line, the Kimpton Grand Roatan exceeded our expectations in pretty much every category that matters. I think the combination of luxury comfort, genuine service, the strategic point value, and that incredible West Bay setting creates an experience that's very hard to replicate. Would we return? Absolutely. Would we recommend it to our friends and family? 100% without hesitation. Honestly, we came with all of our dive gear in tow, expecting world-class diving and that to be the highlight. But after taking it in, we're absolutely going to go back we're likely not going to bring all of our dive gear, and we're just going to enjoy the Roatan experience, because I'd say Roatan was actually more fun as a whole than just our expectation of just the world-class diving. Now, that's not to say we're not going to do some dives, but it won't be the main focus like it was for this trip. So if you're considering Roatan for your next Caribbean getaway and you want luxury that doesn't feel manufactured or overcrowded, I would say to put the Kimpton Grand Roatan at the top of your list. So stay tuned for our next video when we actually go into more detail about our overall week-long stay in Roatan, some of the places we went to, other meals we had, adventures that we found, an amazing driver that we'll talk about as well. I think you'll love to hear about that experience also. And if you liked this video, I think you'll like this one as well. So drop a comment below if you have any questions about the resort, our booking strategy, or anything else about luxury travel with points. Hit that like button if this review is helpful, and make sure you're subscribed to get notifications on more of our travel reviews, our experience, our point strategies, and all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching, and happy travels.